particularly pleased when we get an opportunity to speak to the members of the press, because as you know, you play a tremendous role in the preservation of our democracy. I have commented elsewhere that what we saw on July 11th was a near fatal blow to the democratic process in Nevis. What I have seen from the NRP since is a beating of the chest, a boastful attitude. Take that, you all lost, and whatever we did is somehow justified and justifiable. I feel it sends a very bad message of us as a people, and certainly a very, very bad message of us as a government when we can so openly boast about the illegalities that we engaged in to propel us into office. And the reason why that is a bad message is because we look to the government for guidance. We look to the government for guidance in terms of our moral and our attitudes generally as a country and as a people. And when our premier or our government can resort to certain types of activities, it means that they are thereby rendering themselves unable to give the kind of advice and direction that the country needs. And that's a very big concern that I have. Many have said to me, why is the CCM not willing to concede and just allow the country to move on? And my response is, if someone steals your car and you see them in town driving your car, will you say, well, they have it already, so let them keep it? Or will you seek to do what you can to right the wrong that has happened? I wish to go on record as saying that, for my part, it is not about any quest for power or anything of that nature. I would be here and I would be sitting and joining in this fight regardless of what my own seat had decided. And I say that because what we are fighting for here is Nevis, and we are fighting for the island and the future of the island and a determination as to what we want in terms of a democracy. We either want democracy or we don't. We can't have it both ways. In light of what has happened on Monday, the 11th of July, a day I believe that will go down in infamy in our country. In light of what has happened, in light of the celebration of people like the Premier and the Prime Minister, the Supervisor of Elections, the Registration Officer, and all these important functionaries in our country, as to what has happened, it tells me that we are on a very dangerous slope. And it says to me that we cannot sit back. We in the CCM, we the people of Nevis, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, you in the press, we cannot sit back and allow this to happen. People say we have an attention span of 7 days or something of that nature, and after that everybody just goes back to normal. This cannot be business as usual. Because if this is allowed to take hold, it means that makes little sense for any party in opposition to contest another election. I, for my part, will have to consider whether or not I spend money and spend the energy and try once again to participate in an election in circumstances where the system is rigged. It is rigged because dishonest and corrupt officials have decided to rig it. And we know that we throw these terms around and people say, oh, what are you making noise about? You know, these are things that happen everywhere. We have done a tremendous amount of legal research over the past 2.5 weeks. We have been working very hard to bring a matter to the court. And we can find no precedent for what has happened in Nevis on July 11th. We find precedent where people said lists were padded or people were moved into a district. This is the first time that we have ever seen where a sitting government has systematically removed its own people from the voters list in order to secure a victory at the polls. Never happened before. We know of all the padding that has happened. We know of people who are hurriedly given citizenship in exchange for their registration to vote. We know of the large numbers of Kittitians who have no connection to Nevis who came over. I myself on election day saw one young lady who I know had been in prison and had been taken out of prison by one NRP activist who went over to St. Kitts to do it. And she voted at the Prospect, at the Home for the Elderly in Prospect, and then she was up at the primary school in Brownhill assisting. I recognize her. This is somebody I know. No connection whatsoever with Nevis, and she was not alone. The results in places like Cherry Gardens were badly distorted by the large number of Kitchens who came over, who were put up at the Penny's Beach Hotel, and voted illegally in our country. But even with all that, the NRP felt it could not win the election. And so it resorted to what no other government, no other people anywhere, so far as we have learned, have ever done. And that is to remove its own people from the voters list. And I have seen people cry tears. People who say they live here all their lives, born here, pay their taxes here, own their property here, they have no place else to go but here. And they were told on election day that they could not vote because somebody in some office made a decision that they are a supporter of the Concerned Citizens Movement. In my own district of St. John's, we hitherto thought that we had 171 names removed. We have had to revise that figure upwards. It is now 192 people that were removed from the voters list in St. John's. 192. We have some 48 people that we're able to identify in St. Paul's. We have, I believe, close to 40 that we're able to identify in St. James. In each of the so-called battleground districts, the NRP went to work with the help of electoral officials and the Prime Minister. I want to specify that, and the Prime Minister, because for him to come over here and seek to legitimize what has happened, it tells me that he was part and parcel of all that was going on. And that is why all of our appeals as a party, not to help us, but to help the process and to ensure that democracy remains alive and well in Nevis, fell on deaf ears. Prime Minister ignored us. The supervisor of election not only ignored us, he went on radio and cursed us out. The registration officer ignored us. Every functionary that is put in place to protect the system did the opposite. And the result was that we as a people have suffered a travesty on July 11th. We have decided to take the matter to the court, and we have asked for your assistance, not just in terms of your prayers and your keeping this matter in front of our people. We've also asked for your financial assistance, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend it is an expensive process. We have set up an account at Scotia Bank, and we continue to ask the public to assist us in fighting this fight, because it's a fight for all of us. I have been very pleased that a lot of NRP supporters, people who have said to me, I am an NRP supporter, have contributed to that fund. Because even they understand that what we are dealing with here is a situation where if this takes hold, then elections and democracy as we know it will never ever be the norm in Nevis again. I said in a different place last night that I'm no thief. I have lived my life thus far, far from perfect to be sure, but I've tried my best to be honest. And I can't wait until now I have gray beard and gray hair to start a thief. And if elections in our country are now going to be a contest between who can thief the best, I'm not interested in it. And I believe I can speak for Vance Amry, I can speak for Alexis Jeffers, I can speak for the people at this table that the CCM is not interested in a thieving contest. We must be able to appeal to our people by the power of ideas, and we must be able to persuade our people to our side based on our ability to articulate those ideas to our people. If the NRP said that performance matters and they meant it, there will be no need to disenfranchise our brothers and sisters. The non-national community has been wholly disenfranchised. Large numbers of people in Bad Village, Cane Garden, what is their sin? Many of them have lived here for 13 years, 12 years, have voted over the years in accordance with law, and have not changed their place of residence. Most of them, they never even bothered to send them an objection notice. What they did was this year, and you will now realize that we are approaching August, the Premier decided in his wisdom to withhold work permits this year from many non-nationals. And then somewhere, he made up his mind that if they do not have a work permit for this year, then they are somehow rendered unable and ineligible to vote. That is not the law. The law says if you are a Commonwealth citizen, over 18 years old, and a resident here for 12 months, then you are eligible to be registered to vote. You cannot be disenfranchised because somebody up at Bath Hotel decides, you know what, I'm not going to give you the work permit this year, or I'm not going to give you the work permit yet. But it just tells you how diabolical this was, and the fact that it went to the highest echelons in our government. This was a scheme hatched to ensure that as many people as possible, whom they determined might be sympathetic to the CCM, were removed. I am now hearing NRP people say, oh, why are you making noise for NRP people are taken off the list too? My view is the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. And if NRP people were taken off the list, I must ask the NRP, how is it only CCM is complaining? How is it only CCM is in court? How is it not a member of the NRP has raised a single voice in objection to what has happened? And most of all, how is it that Premier Parry, when he announced the election, can say that if anybody tell you they can't vote because of the list and their NRP, tell them they lie, they're not an NRP supporter? How can he be so bold to say that unless he knew that the people who have been disenfranchised are supporters of the Council on Citizens movement? These are the facts. I'm not making these things up. And you must consider these matters. We in the party decided that we will fight this in the courts because we feel that is a decent thing to do. We, however, will continue to agitate and keep this in the court of public opinion. We will speak to foreign governments, and we will continue to get the message out that what happened in Nevis on July 11 should never happen anywhere in our region again, and certainly should never happen on the island of Nevis. And if the people of St. Kitts listening think that they are not next, tell them a federal election is coming. And when it comes in those marginal seats in St. Kitts, Dr. Douglas is no longer concerned about adding and padding. He's now concerned about subtraction. So what is now going to happen if there are seats which are decided by small margins? Look out. 200, 300, 400 voters are going to disappear. And so diabolical was the plot here in Nevis. You know what happened? They waited until the last possible minute to publish the list. Many people we are talking to who were disenfranchised are telling us that they only found out their name was off when they went to vote on July 11th, because the list was not published until Saturday afternoon, the 2nd of July, for an election on the 11th of July. 5 working days. And many people had no idea that their name had been removed summarily from the voters list. My own family members came from abroad. No objection notice sent to them. No idea whatsoever. They showed up to vote. I'm very sorry, you cannot vote. Your name has been removed from the voters list. That is arbitrary, it is criminal, and it is something which will send our country into a very dangerous downward spiral. We are standing up here and we are hoping that history will judge us in the CCM as those who stood up for what is right, even against formidable odds, even against a coalition between Prime Minister and Premier. We continue to stand up for what is right. We will shortly file a petition in the court. We're asking for your prayers. We're asking for the goodwill of the nation, because we feel that the court should come to our rescue if our elected officials refuse to. And in the meantime, we continue to say that this government lacks any sense of legitimacy, and we continue to maintain that because all of us know, CCM, NRP, none aligned, know what happened in Nevis on election day. We saw it, we experienced it, nobody needs to tell you about it. That is all that I have to say, save if there are any questions for me, but I cannot go off this mic seeing that the whole media is gathered before saying congratulations to the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. It has such a beautiful ring to it. The Honorable Alexis Jeffers, because he fought against overwhelming odds. And at the end of the day, the people of St. James determined that they preferred what was right over what was entirely wrong for the people of Nevis. So the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, congratulations publicly yet again.